Welcome back to the Truth Factory. Let's get into it. I'm going to start the show off with the fact that thousands of leaked emails just came out. And once again, a cat with a laptop is weeks ahead of multi-million-dollar media corporations. Some people believe that senile McCain has leaked this, but that's not true. The only thing McCain is leaking is from his ass. The thousands of leaked correspondence were between Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance agents, CIA officers, and other intelligence agencies, as well as representatives from the mainstream media, NGO, internal funds, and think tanks. And in this video, I'm going to be reading you an email that shows Ukrainian collusion within the government. Now, unlike what has been presented to you by the mainstream media, there weren't 17 agencies that signed off on the opinion of collusion. Only 4 out of the 17 were involved in the January assessment about Russia: the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which is an umbrella agency that oversees all 17 organizations. And I already explained how the NSA and the CIA collaborated to falsify documents to get a FISA warrant to spy on Trump Towers, and so we know that they cannot be trusted. The CNN viewers are all like, "You can't read that, only Chris Cuomo can read that, otherwise you're gonna go to jail." And CNN Chris Cuomo's like,
"It's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us."
And to that I say, the following conversation took place July 26, 2016 at 9:38 a.m. For some context on the conversation, it's between David J. Kramer and Kurt Volker. David J. Kramer was the Senior Director for Human Rights and Human Freedoms at the McCain Institute. Yeah, he worked for John McCain, and he also worked under George Bush. He's also on the International Advisory Council at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Kramer is also a member of the Ukrainian Today media organization's International Supervisory Council. Oh, and in 2016, Kramer argued that the Minsk II peace agreement should be scrapped and Western sanctions should be placed on Russia. So just to confirm, David J. Kramer wants to get rid of the peace deal and punish Russia. And his email goes to Kurt Volker. Volker is an ambassador to NATO and worked under George Bush and Obama. He began his career in foreign affairs as an analyst for the CIA, and he also has worked at the McCain Institute. Oh, and about a week ago, he became a special representative for Ukrainian negotiations. And just a quick Google search of these two men's names together shows that they were against peace with Russia and dislike Putin. You might be saying that these guys aren't high enough to be this involved. Well, Kramer actually had a direct link to the fake Steele dossier. In fact, new filings in the lawsuit detail that David Kramer, who was employed by the McCain Institute, acted as a representative of McCain in his dealings on sensitive intelligence measures. It reveals that McCain was just one of the few people with whom the dossier's author, ex-British spy Christopher Steele, shared his final findings, which we now know are discredited and disproven. But without further ado, here is their email. Kurt, as I mentioned briefly end of today, I wanted to see if you would be interested/willing to sign the attached open letter to Congress about Russia hacking. Looking to get about 20 to 25 leading conservative voices to sign on. Not a wholesale collection, just starting on this with the aim to release Friday or early next week. Many thanks, David. Now, as a note, this email came out exactly one day after Guccifer 2.0, the Russian hacker, takes credit for the DNC hack and begins posting these documents. Guccifer 2.0 has stated that he got these documents from Seth Rich, but nobody wants to talk about that. What this means is the day after these emails were hacked, these agents were trying to pin it on Russia. At this point, there has been no proof of that, but these men have motives against Russia, and they're trying to set a narrative. Let's read on.
It's illegal.
The attached says the following. We, the undersigned, urge the appropriate congressional committees to launch an immediate investigation into the reported Russia cyber hack on the DNC's computer system. Which never happened, by the way. They never investigated the DNC's computer systems because they were not hacked. And while this is not the first major attack against the United States, and they go on to list blah, 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 the hacking of the political party's email system by Russian intelligence agencies would, if proven, constitute unprecedented foreign interference in the American presidential campaign. Do you see how they're framing this already? This is not a partisan issue, right? Because these guys work for the Republican John McCain. The foreign attack was an assault on the integrity of the American political process. Okay, virtue signaling. First of all, Volkers work for the CIA and should know that the USA has tried to influence the elections of other countries at least 81 times since World War II. I digress. Instead of focusing on who may have benefited and who is damaged, the investigation should focus on discovering the facts concerning the role of Russian intelligence in the hacking, whether others were involved, and the role of WikiLeaks disseminating the stolen information. Congress has a responsibility to get down to the bottom of the extraordinary break, not only to determine who was responsible, but also to consider it appropriate response, blah, blah, blah. They need to understand that their actions have consequences. So what this email is doing is it's starting with a conclusion and saying, how do we get there, instead of going where the facts leads. This is trying to build a narrative and then finding reasoning afterwards. This is exactly why I don't trust the media or the government, because it's full of horse shit.
You are fake news.
Sir.
We know that Clinton had ties to the Ukraine. Millions of dollars were being funneled through banks into her foundation. So even if we could prove that Russia tried to influence the U.S. election, you have to do an equal investigation into how the Ukraine tried to influence the election. But honestly, the further you investigate into the Russian hacking theory, the more evidence is clear that they didn't, because the metadata on the computer that got the Clinton files had direct access to the data taken. The hacking also shows that the leaked materials was copied in an Eastern time zone, conveniently the same time zone as Washington, D.C. The speed of the transfer of the data was 22 megabytes per second, so it was unlikely that this was used remotely over the internet. Whoever leaked these documents was in Washington, D.C. and was hooked up directly to the DNC server. And the left has made a great deal at denigrating Craig Murray, former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, who received some of these leaks and stated that the leakers were not Russians and that they were leaks, not hacks. But as I've shown time and time again, Seth Rich was the leaker, not Russia. And even Julian Assange has all but said that. Someone with a perfect track record who would 100% know who the leaker was has said that he's 1,000% sure that it was not Russia. Wait, stop the press. I just found something. CrowdStrike was the company that was hired to investigate the DNC, and they came out with a report in June 2016 blaming Russian hacking. CrowdStrike's founder's name is Dmitry Alperovich, and he is funded by NATO and the Ukrainian billionaire Viktor Pinchuck. Viktor Pinchuck is the guy who is funneling millions of dollars through banks into the Clinton Foundation. Both Viktor and Dmitry were anti-Russian. Are you connecting the dots? Viktor was funding Hillary to become president, and Hillary wanted to start a war with Russia. She wanted to do that because Viktor was paying her to. The Russian DNC hack was the narrative that they wanted to use to vilify Russia and start potentially a war with them. This is crazy. This is huge Ukrainian collusion. I'm going to end up dead. So there you go. If I find anything else in these emails, I'll let you know. But honestly, I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. You know, if only CNN watched my videos and could get that information out to the masses.
It's illegal.
I just want to thank all my Patreon supporters. If you like this video, my Patreon is in the link below, as well as a link to my Twitter. Support me until I'm dead, I guess. Have a great night.